And what the left has stood for with political correctness is to try and get those with whom they disagree to shut up. And the Tea Party movement and Sarah Palin and Michelle Bachmann and Alan West and all the people that have gone out there against the mainstream media and said, you're going to call us racist, you're going to call us potential Timothy McVeighs, f*** you. War.
A veteran journalist friend of mine once told me that the best editors are risk takers. And perhaps no crusading commentator exemplified the role of a risk taker more so than Andrew Breitbart, who excelled as a counterweight to the mainstream media. Andrew, who appeared on The Source several times, passed away last night at the not-so-ripe old age of 43. Joining me now is Toronto blogger Kathy Shaidle, who runs the always interesting and often controversial website 5 Feet of Fury. Kathy, why does Andrew Breitbart's passing matter?
Well, first of all, it's a shock to most people. I think that a lot of people just getting over the death of Christopher Hitchens, which was really not a surprise, are waking up this morning and they're reeling. I think his death matters because I heard a lot of people today talking about phoning into people like Dennis Miller and saying, he inspired me. I wrote this book. I decided to do a website. I joined the Tea Party because of Andrew Breitbart, because I met him and he personally said X to me. And he seems to have personally touched so many people, made a lot of them mad, inspired a lot of them, and I think that this will get a lot of people reevaluating his legacy and saying, if he can do it, I can do it.
What do you think his legacy is, Kathy?
Well, that's a tough one. You know, I don't want to put this the wrong way, but I got the feeling that a few months ago anyway that he was getting a little bit disillusioned. He was an idealist, and I heard him talking about how he was starting to get kind of disillusioned with party politics. And I joked on my site that, you know, a year from now, Big Hollywood, one of his sites, would probably just be the new TMZ, because one day he would just hang it all up and say, you know what, I've had it with all of you guys. He sounded like he was getting tired of the right and the left. So I wonder if, in a way, he won't have time, he won't be able to do that now, and his legacy will continue to be this sort of libertarian website, network of websites that he set up so cleverly so that he could disseminate all this information.
You know, it's an interesting take, Kathy, because I know just before he passed away, his very last tweet, he was attacking a critic as being a putz, one of his favorite words. So it seemed that he was going down swinging, so I wasn't so sure that he had this disillusionment going on.
It was kind of weird. I heard him on Dennis Miller, and it was interesting. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. But, you know, he was a mercurial guy. You could listen to him one day, and he would be on to a certain subject. A week later, he would be on to another subject. Sometimes it was inspirational, and sometimes, frankly, it was a little flaky, and it made me a little bit nervous. I used to think, what is he going to do or say next? And that can be a good thing, and it can be a bad thing. So maybe he was having a bad day, but, you know, he did go down swinging, and that was him on Twitter, by the way. He called a lot of people a lot worse things on Twitter, and that was his confrontational way. We complain a lot, or people do, about how we have all this divisive rhetoric, and they point to him. But I think this divisive rhetoric shows us who people really are. Right. Today at Big Hollywood, the editors decided to leave the comments open. They are not going to censor them, and there are already hundreds of comments under Breitbart's obit saying, from leftists saying, I'm glad he's dead, I hope he burns in hell. They want to show this, they don't want to censor it. He reveled in this, and they knew that if he was around, he would have said, no, keep those up.
You know, Kathy, I'm glad you mentioned that, because, you know, Andrew was called so many things, a bully, a racist, time and time again, and yet we keep hearing from the left how they're kind and they're caring. Now, you've had more time today to go into, you know, the blogosphere and check out some of the comments that are being said of him. It's like people are dancing on his grave before the corpse is even cold, isn't it?
Yes, and one of the memes that was going around when he was alive was, Andrew Breitbart is secretly gay. Now, for what it's worth, he was married and he had 4 kids. But as Breitbart used to say to the faces of people who would literally yell these words at him at events, which I won't say on TV right now, but they would say, "You X." You know, for a homosexual. He would say, "But I thought you guys loved gay people." And so that weird, twisted, bizarre hatred that he could inspire from the left, what it did was reveal their own inner insanity more than anything. And he didn't care. But it just goes to show you how bizarre the left has become. That was the biggest insult they could think of, was, "You're gay."
And I thought it was still bad for him, correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy, to out somebody who's gay that doesn't want to be outed.
Oh, there are outing rules, except when they're not. You know, it all depends. You need a decoder ring.
So if you're a right-wing homosexual, different set of rules for being outed than if you're secretly gay and of the left side of the sphere.
Absolutely. And doesn't matter if you're really gay or not, they'll call you gay.
Wow.
Makes no sense. So people today were saying, "Oh, he probably died in a gay bathhouse." And like, this is the left. Sorry, that's what they said.
Well, you know, Kathy, we have one clip that we want to see. I think of Andrew in his fighting form.
Good.
Okay.
My motivating factor is I'm like an ex-smoker. You know how ex-smokers at a party say stop smoking to people? Well, I'm an ex-liberal, and my exposure to what liberalism is, it is a minority political philosophy in the United States. According to Gallup, there's a 2-to-1 ratio of conservatives to liberals. Yet the Democratic Party dominates the media. That's Hollywood. It dominates what you call the consensus media, to the point of absurdity, where a newsroom is a basically totalitarian state, where when I go to CBS or NBC or ABC, when I'm under fire by the mainstream media, as I'm walking through the newsroom, somebody will tap me on the shoulder and whisper, "I'm on the team." They have to whisper just like they have to whisper in Hollywood. When you're an actor or a director or a producer in Hollywood, they whisper, "I'm on the team." Why do they have to whisper? Because everywhere you go where the left exists, you find speech codes. Everywhere you go, you find a form of totalitarianism that says if you don't agree with our position, we're going to marginalize you.
Now, that was Andrew just on this very show in October explaining what made him the way he is. Tell me, Kathy, you yourself, I think you're one of the bravest bloggers out there in Canada today. Were you influenced and inspired by Andrew?
I think I was. Here's what I think Andrew's legacy will be for a lot of people. He was an entrepreneur. He was an American. He was this quintessentially American extrovert entrepreneur. What makes me frustrated as a Canadian blogger is how many of, well, us, are careerist hacks. Their big goal in life for a lot of Canadian conservative people is to get hired by the Manning Institute. Andrew Breitbart and Americans tend to start their own Manning Institutes, and he, like entrepreneurs like everyone from P.T. Barnum to Lucille Ball to Oprah Winfrey, was only fearless because he had created a platform from which he could not be fired. That entrepreneurial spirit is what gave him courage, and I wish that more Canadians would imitate him in that fashion.
Well, Kathy, you got to be careful what you wish for. The next thing we'll have is CanCon rules for the blogosphere.
Well, I almost would welcome that. It would be a lot of fun every day.
Well, Kathy, thank you so much for dropping by and sharing your insight. I know you've been taking this pretty hard.
Yeah.
And but you know, thank you again.
Okay, thanks.